Very delighted to have Anand with us. Anand, thank you so much for joining today. In next 28 minutes or so, uh, the whole we want to actually give you a possibly a view together of how really amazing science is being done around us. World class science, world class science for the global health threats as we talked about, and what it takes to do that, where you are absolutely at the top 1% of that science work, and the world is looking at you and world is expecting from you. How does that journey look like when you are actually being seen at that? And that is this discussion is going to be about. And I'm very excited that we are building this session together. But before I do that, I'll just possibly we'll slowly settle into the context of that. Um, you know, to begin with, if I may ask, and as you heard, it's a very interesting space where I do know, Anand, but Anand is not trained broadly as a biologist. I just wonder whether you like to know how a non-biologist is actually in the space of science and leading a company which, honestly, the world is looking for an answer for this global health threat of AMR. How is that happening? Where for AMR or antimicrobial resistance, where every hospital that you and I know, every day in that hospital, every hospital that you know, every day people are dying for where we cannot treat them. Every day, every hospital that you and I know in the world, not in India. And the world is looking for an answer that how can we have drug that can save that life every day. A non-biologist leading an effort to do that is something interesting. So Anand, if we begin by understanding your own journey from space of non-biology to biology, and then we'll come back on the second part.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. We are stopping you from lunch. And deep science normally gets very limited audience, as we saw between the two sessions. But you stuck on, so hats off to you and thank you. Just so that everyone here knows, when he used the word antimicrobial resistance, basically antibiotics don't work anymore. We are losing 5 million people per year to antibiotic deaths. It doesn't get openly spoken about, of which 20 to 25% are our country. We lose more people every year because of unsolvable infections in antibiotics than we did in COVID, year on year. So it is a big problem, and we need to solve it ourselves. But just a quick personal journey. I'm an electronics engineer, trained in Chennai, then went to US to do my PhD in biomedical engineering, and I worked as a computer chip designer. I'm from the semiconductor physics place, working with Apple, Nokia, Broadcom, Qualcomm in the US. Came back from the US to India and did 2 successful startups in the electronics area. Tech and electronics is obviously relatively simpler than science. And then, because of my own personal journeys, jumped into science in my 40s. That was a tough jump. It happened because of my own personal journey. I was battling cancer, not once but twice. And I come from a family that's been doing medical work all their lives. My father was a very celebrated doctor in Chennai. So I used that opportunity for something that changed me through my own personal journeys to start a cancer company. And I used all the modeling simulation techniques that we use for computer chips to model cancer. So that is very tough in the 40s to start learning biology and oncology. Thankfully, my team is so fantastic and 10 times smarter than me. So put together a team for CellWorks, and today CellWorks is modeling cancer and coming out with solutions for hard to treat cancer. So Tasneem, it was that around that time I saw the writing on the wall that something like COVID would happen. 2014-15, right? We said the pandemic is just around the corner, and nobody gives a damn about low to medium income countries like India, with 1.45 billion people and millions dying of unsolvable infection. Merck, Pfizer, Roche, they're not going to fix it. We have to fix it. So we spun out Bugworks from CellWorks to work on infection and cancer. But it has been very exciting that a lot of things I learned in engineering I'm able to use in science, and it's okay to not be from a particular area. In fact, you can push yourself back dispassionately where you need to, because you're not wed to the science, you're wed to the problem that needs to be solved. So I think that has been the journey, lots of learnings, lots of challenges. We make a lot of mistakes, because doing a deep science from India, is impossible. It was impossible 15 years ago, slightly better now. We'll talk about it more. But yeah, semiconductors, I went from chips to chimps.
So, no, I think very important component. I think uh, what Anand said is that it sometimes as you build your journey, I think you realize that you want to do something you feel passionate about. Knowing him, I know him from now 12, 13 years from the day one as Bugworks started. I don't think it started for balance sheet. I don't think, honestly, it didn't start. The world's biggest global health threat question didn't start from that, okay, if I make this, I'll have this much balance sheet, this much valuation, this much. It started from, can I solve this problem? Can we solve this problem? And if I just go on a little bit on one more line of zoom in, cancer, if you don't know, I just think that in cancer, when you have therapy, one of the therapy which is strongest is uses chemotherapy, right? And when you do chemotherapy, what does chemotherapy do? It's like a solid machine gun which comes and kills cells. It actually takes down your ability, your strength of the body, your immunity, right? To take care of your tumor. It is important. But when you do that, what happens? Your immunity is down. When your immunity is down, the opportunities infections around you take over. So there is a huge component of cancer patients who are under treatment. They actually get infections. They die of infections, not of cancer. Huge component. The chemotherapy-led AMR, right, is actually a big phenomena. And that's where the connection came from, that in cancer patients, how you actually get infections which are not treatable anymore. And that's the global health issue. And that is something that Bugworks had, that connection from Cellworks to Bugworks. So very important. I just thought I'll zoom in on that component. So while you so think of it now, as he mentioned about the AMR. So Anand, so just to give you context from, so that you know what is happening at CCAM, we started in 2009-10. Around 12-13, we got our bearings in terms of, we really want to take out some amazing ideas, bold ideas. So 12-13, CCAM and organizations supported by Department of Biotechnology, we said, you know what, we are like science geeks. But while there are some of the stories which will happen in academia, how do we actually attract talent and bold ideas like Anand's from Bugworks and many others, and say we give them actually the conducive environment to test it out? And we got lucky. At the same time, the biotechnology ignition grant had started. We got ability to fund them on day one. We could fund them at that time 50 lakh rupees grant, no question asked. If you have an idea at the back of the envelope and you had something, we could believe in people, and we did a lot of them. Over time, now we have, as I mentioned yesterday briefly, we have now supported and invested in nearly 600 such deep science companies across healthcare, agriculture, animal health, environment. And many of them are US FDA approved. Some of them are global best, the number one. And I don't want to talk about it others right now, as he happens in AMR, new broad spectrum antibiotic, and he should talk about Bugworks in a little bit. So we are actually in the mission of finding those scientific gems, deep science, and provide an environment which can actually give them the process of going to the next level. Believe in them, be with them, not on the other side of it, and go that. And Bugworks was a great learning story. We believed in them without a doubt. We believed in people more than anything else. And there's been great learning story in terms of how do you actually work with deep science, what it takes to work with deep science. This is not easy. And I think as we go to the discussion, you'll realize it. Bugworks has been a phenomenal thing. Bugworks has gotten CCAM a great recognition. I don't deny that. CCAM leads one of the largest efforts in the world right now in called AMR innovations because of our early understanding with Bugworks and so on. So I think Bugworks is that story that happened. I want you to now talk about Bugworks, where you spent how actually from doing the pathways for cancer in Cellworks, you land in Bugworks. Right. Who are your co-founding members, and were they driven by a startup bug, or were they driven by a global health solution bug?
You have to be absolutely crazy to want to do something like this, because it's a 15 years to 20 years journey. It's not quick commerce, right? It's very, very difficult. I love quick commerce, but I'm just saying it's the other end of the spectrum. So first of all, for this audience, the top 3 problems in the world today. Certainly, it's not delivering pizza faster. It's climate, conflict, superbugs, and I'd like to add a fourth, Donald Trump. Uh, so, so we have some big issues here to deal with, right? So I always wanted to work on a company that was in the top 3 biggest problems in the world, right? So from Cellworks, while we were working on cancer, every day I was waking up in the morning and seeing, India lost 100,000 babies to infection. India is losing 3 lakh people in Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, everywhere to this. I said, and nobody cares about it, right? I said, we are going to do this company. Then we started reading about antibiotics. The last novel class of antibiotics, ladies and gentlemen, the last novel class of antibiotics came in 1964 when I was born. It's that old. There's never been a new class of antibiotics because antibiotics did a great job. You had penicillin. Alexander Fleming did his work 100 years ago, Nobel Prize winning. It changed the course of World War II. It did a great job. Nobody wants to invest because the money is in diabetes. The money now is in GLP-1, is in oncology, right? It's in cosmetics. Who cares about antibiotics? You take it for 5 days, it costs 20 rupees, you move on. But we let the bacteria win over human beings. Bacteria have been around for millions of years. You and I come from only 150,000 year Homo sapien history. So who the hell is going to fix this problem for my country, for my people? Us. So we said from Cellworks, can we start a company for Bugworks? At that same time, there's a beautiful concept called alchemy. If you have a big vision where you choose conviction over convenience and choose passion over profit, things beautifully align together. Conviction over convenience. AstraZeneca Bangalore closed its operation and they had some amazing people in infection. I don't know the spelling of microbiology. I used to fudge my way with investors. Quickly Google search before the investor meeting, right? And meeting those VCs, Taslim, they're my son and daughter's age. It's very tough. I'm only used to telling that age what to do. So it's very big for a Buddha to change completely and make a DNA shift to where you want to blow the socks of that person who's my child's age, right? With severe conviction and passion that you're going to do an antibiotic that's going to save 50 to 100 million people around the world. It's going to take 15 years. We convinced VCs to go into blended financing. 90% you put it in Paytm, quick commerce. Hey, buddy. 10% set it aside for things that can change the world. Only deep science and deep tech can change the world. What are the biggest problems when you and your family step out of your house? Health, yeah? Environment, particularly if you're from Delhi? AQI, right? And UTA, food. Can there be something bigger than that? Maybe blink it, just kidding. These are big problems and these require tough solutions. And Bugworks, we started this company and we have pitched more than 400 investors all over the world. Whatever little ego me or my beautiful scientists had was completely humbled. And I changed my title from CEO to CBO, Chief Begging Officer. It takes that kind of thing to let your ego go. And you said there's something that's so much bigger than me that I'm going to carry my team along. And Taslim, that's how we put Bugworks together. And ladies and gentlemen, with all humility, we still have a long way to go. We are not a success story yet, but we have cracked the superbug. We are the first antibiotic since 1964 that can work from head to toe on all bacterial infections. And please pray we succeed, not for me to go and settle in the Bahamas, but because this can actually change the course of the world. That people can believe that I don't need to wait for Merck United States to come out with a drug and that becomes a generics before your parents or you can use it. We create a solutions that are second to none. Vasudhaiva Kutumbam. Our solutions are going to go around the world, not just for low-cost manufacturing, but for deep innovation that will change the face of the world. That's the burning passion, and this is my pitch to the VCs too.
No, absolutely, Anand. So I think just to kind of, make it home, every time any of your relative, your family member get to hospital, and now God forbid they have fever, right? Think of it. Simple. I'm talking very simple. The doctor is saying, let's do culture. The only thing you are actually hoping, if you understand, is that the culture doesn't come fully resistant. That means no antibiotic will work on it. You are actually praying through your entire thing to say, God forbid, this particular culture of my relative, of my family doesn't come, because you do not know until that culture comes back and says that none of my antibiotics are going to work on it. And now you're done, right? Now, and that is where the world is looking to have a new antibiotic which actually can solve and address the current forms of bacteria, which are now not responding to the current yet discovered forms of antibiotic. That is the world that is looking at. And currently, Bugworks is the most advanced broad spectrum antibiotic, which is in the phase 1 trial in Australia to do that. But for that to understand, and if I just go a little bit on the technology front, just because we are talking about, one had to understand, how does this bacteria suddenly develop this resistance? It's very simple. They actually start adapting to the stress environment which is around them. The more we are going to push them and expose them to any stress environment, and here if I may use antibiotic as a stress environment, they'll start changing and start living with it. And once they start living with it, they make the changes within them so that now the survival cultures will become resistant. For them, the scientists that Anand talked about, they had to understand how can we ensure that all mechanisms and the millions of years of bacterial evolution, you have to crack that to understand that new chemical entity will actually be not be suppressed by this genetic evolution that it actually is going on. And that is very important. That was the component of deep science, where you understand how is bacteria going to respond to my chemical drug and not let it become resistant simply. Very important. That science of entire chemical and pathogen interaction was the most important. Anand.
Just add on to that, right? And it's beautiful. An engineer, a mathematician, a computer scientist, a microbiologist, a pharmacologist looking at the problem. 5 blind women, men looking at the elephant story, right? The composite of the thought process that comes from different disciplines looking at a problem is so non-linear. It's so phenomenal. I just don't have a bunch of scientists sitting and working. Right? We have a very, very multidisciplinary team. And it takes a very, bindas approach you need to put this together. My humble request to all of you here when you go out to your families is, please don't take antibiotics without a doctor's prescription. And if you're asked to take it for 6 days, don't believe in chat GPT or WhatsApp. Please follow it up. Most of our illnesses are viral, not bacterial, that you don't even need antibiotics. India is the largest producer of antibiotics and largest consumer of antibiotics. So antibiotics are in our water stream, in our milk stream, in your KFC, all kinds of things, right? And most of us, 1 in 3 of us sitting in this room, if I cultured the bugs in your stomach, they'll already be resistant. So we have a huge problem. It doesn't impact you because you're healthy. The moment somebody falls sick, as he said, the immune system is down. 35% of people in India with cancer die not because of cancer, but because the body's immune system has been suppressed by cancer therapy and its infection. So it's a big, big problem. I won't bore you with too much details, but it's also an exciting problem to crack.
No, absolutely. So while we do that, and AMR is big, but think of it just to, and I want to then change the gears here. Think of it, a company that started 12, 13 years ago with that conviction, when the world said, new drug from India, you must be joking, because you are usually doing what you call it as generics. You are doing biosimilars. New drug from India, you must be joking, you must be kidding. Then you say, no, not only new drug, I'm going to do a new broad spectrum antibiotic which was last discovered in 60s. Then they can actually become hilarious. They say, what are you talking about? We haven't done that.
In fact, most people ask me what I was smoking.
Yes. Well, that you can ask later, but nonetheless. But coming back, no, I'm not kidding. Just to even to look at their face to actually say, I'm going to discover a broad spectrum antibiotic at that time was a completely new different phenomena, right? Well, it is as good as saying that in next football World Cup, India will be the champion. We are not even qualifying for it, but to say that I'm going to be the champion and the winning of it, that is possibly closest I can imagine in the simple analogy. That is when they started and I'm going to fast forward for Anand, and I just From there, where are you now, Anand? That will be an important component because that was a big picture. You got amazing scientists who were at AstraZeneca, as a co-founders of it. Where are you standing so that we can go to other steps?
So the DNA of the company is that we do something so uniquely innovative. I have this beautiful map in my house, Taslim. And in this lifetime of mine, I want our innovation to touch that entire map. So I only have one goal. That map needs to be touched. It's the world is thy stage. It's one family, right? And you always hear our leadership talking about that Vasudhaiva Kutumbam. So we wanted to make this antibiotic to go everywhere, affordable, accessible. So right now we're going through a phase 1 clinical trial. It's taken us 10 years to get here. 10 years. And another 4 years before this will become a product.
Where you have done simple work, excellent.
Right? And we still, I wish I could have some ego and say we have made it. We haven't made it. Yeah.
And that involved building new chemical structures, testing them in cells, testing in animal models, testing on clinical samples, and
everything,
then
right?
phase 1.
All of the stuff. We went around the world. We've tested our stuff on 20,000 superbugs, right? And thankfully, our stuff works on bioterrorism also. Therefore, the United States government picked up our asset and is supporting it because we're the only antibiotic that works on health and defense, like anthrax, bubonic plague, what you see in Hollywood movies. Yeah, that's a reality. So where are we? We're in phase 1. It's exactly, Taslim. Have you all played a game called Snakes and Ladders? Good, right? Man, in 4 years, I went up to 93 and I hit one snake. Swing, you keep coming down. Drug discovery is exactly that. Maybe I should put a map of snake and ladders also. It's so tough. You make such a good progress. One small side effect in a patient, you have to go back to the drawing board. I was telling Taslim, one small pH difference in a compound, we've lost 3 years and $7 million. So, which means I need pools of capital that are not only equity based, that are grant based. So you have to figure out new ways of raising money. You go and borrow and beg and plead from US government, from UK government, from everywhere. So the type of fundraising, the type of visioning, the type of messaging that you have to espouse to take people along is so much different than tech. But please wish us luck. We're going through phase 1. It's an IV drug for the most serious patients, and the WHO has invested in Bugworks. Since the WHO invested in Bugworks, why is that great? Because we got the chap of WHO and they said, if you're successful, Anand, your drug will go to 146 countries on the same day. This is not done to sell off to some pharma in Boston or Bay Area or San Diego and say that we did an IP licensing deal from here. Yeah. It's an ability to take something that we do from our country truly to an 8 billion planet. That's what drives us.
No, absolutely. And you can imagine, and so they remain the frontier-most company with an asset which is in the phase 1 trial. You saw that small issue had possibly costed them a year, some funds. They raised more than $50 million till now in a market where nobody's coming and investing. They've been able to, and I think it's actually real belief and the I would say strong conviction of people like Anand that it has come this far. Many companies actually haven't come through because of the really difficult market that is there right now. Antibiotic, although it is saving lives, what he said is right. If you go outside and go to the pharmacy and ask for simple thing, it is going to cost you 5 rupees, 10 rupees a strip. Now that's the problem of the market in antibiotic, and that's where he's trying to solve a big problem. So it's very, very important. Now I just wanted to come to knowing the time is not on our side, but very important story, and that's what we want to say, that building a company that matters and turning the scientific rigor into something that is long term and making a difference. I don't think there are many such good stories which like Bugworks. So one thing I wanted to ask you in terms of Anand going forward, why is India it's right time for we to pick up this deep science ideas? Why people should be a little bit more bold than only looking at 5-year returns? People what is that actually can make people saying that, you know what, I don't want a guaranteed success. I'm not talking about any other specific, but I don't want to I want to do something ambitious that actually can say that I did this. Why it's a good time for it?
Before I answer that, just to let you know, the nation's most respected incubator is what he runs, CCAM. 600 companies in biotech space have gone through that. Give it up for Taslim, really. Right? And we've been there since day zero. So guys, am I just nationalistic? or is India the right place to do deep science, deep tech? Let's just spend 1 minute on it. There is no other country in the world, first of all, that has 1.45 billion. We beat the Chinese there, correct? When you do deep science, deep tech, you're looking for diversity. That means if I do innovation for a narrow population, it does not generalize. Did you get the concept? Innovation done for narrow population does not generalize, right? I stole that line from someone. It's a great line. India has got the diversity because I get everything from Dravidian genes to Aryan genes to Afghan genes to Eurasian genes to Persian genes to Chinese genes here. No other country offers genetic variation. And without genetic variation, you cannot do deep science, deep tech in health if you want your innovation to go around the world. So India is the world in terms of its genetic diversity, which is amazing, right? Number two, we have the scale. You see what we did in COVID. Without India, maybe 150 million people would have died, guys. We sent our vaccines around the world. They could not afford mRNA vaccine. They don't have minus 20 degrees centigrade refrigerator in deep India to have an mRNA vaccine. It was our vaccines that did it, that saved Southeast Asia, South America, Africa, etc. We have the scale, manufacturing prowess, and cost. Remember, cost doesn't mean cheap innovation. Cost means affordable innovation. Your innovation has to be the best, but you also have affordability. So scale, affordability, diversity in genetic pool make India the best place to do it. And Taslim, look at what India is doing for the world. We have huge challenges. But what we did with COVID, what we did with our UPI digital stack that's going to many parts of the world, and I hope what we will do with deep science and deep tech in the coming years, we should go back to the time when Nalanda was a Stanford University of the 1200s and 1300s, right? We're getting there, and maybe our generation will make it happen.
Absolutely. And we need to be ambitious of that level, to be honest. For deep science, you have to have that kind of thought process and mindset, that we need to be bold. And I think the ecosystem, slowly but steadily, is actually providing that space for those bold ideas and crazy people to take up those global challenges and do that. And I think this is something that is very important for us to know.
Can I just add on one
Please,
thing
please.
very, very quickly, right? You asked me about a team. The type of mentality of a team that can do deep science, deep tech from India needs clarity of purpose, because I can't change things so quickly. I told you, to make one small stupid pH change took us 3 years, $7 million. So clarity of purpose, you can be adaptable with technologies and talents, but clarity of purpose. Because that Pied Piper has to sing that same song, and all the VC mices will come along, right? So it's very, very important that you get clarity of purpose and you have a team that's willing to do that. And I need more Rahul Dravids than Rinku Singhs in my team. It's a test match. It's a 6-day test match, not a T7, right? And so it needs that type of thinking to build teams that can deliver.
Deep science is a long haul. Deep science is a conviction, and you need people with absolutely deep knowledge on it and a perseverance around it. And I think that is a difference that absolutely and much needed, because if you want to really do as I mentioned, that 1% on the 0.1%, you'll need that. And I think that is very, very, very quickly, while we actually do that, I think, do you think we have talent that actually, we could look at from the education system that is coming, which actually can help us to build more and more deep science and deep tech capability?
So, our education system is great. It's produced people like you who are second to none, right? And it's my big privilege to even be sitting in IIM Ahmedabad. So it's a great opportunity for me. But Taslim, we have pockets of excellence. But in deep science, we came from a generics background, manufacturing. Dolo 650, right? Suddenly from Dolo 650, you're saying you make the next lung cancer drug that nobody else has done. Solpa problem, right? Solpa problem. Yeah, right. So that's a huge change in mindset, right? But we have pockets of excellence, and thanks to C-Camp and many other incubators, we have 40 incubators in our country in the last 15 years. DBT has helped create 3,000 companies, of which 5% will succeed. 5% is a good number in biotech. So the ecosystem is happening. But the talent I'm missing, Taslim, is people who have that risk-taking ability, and who have global exposure and having taken products forward. But there's one person we all really have to thank who's going to solve the problem. You know who? Donald Trump. Give it up to him, because we're getting some outstanding talent calling on us every day from the US. H1F101. I don't know whether I'll be allowed to enter the US, but sir, I love you. But yeah, we are missing some pieces with international talent coming back, Tasneem, and a few success stories from here. We are going to ignite.
So very importantly, just want to quickly close, and if organizers allows a minute or two more, just on the last point, where do you see where you have talked? Just if you can just briefly summarize the challenge for a deep science company and opportunities going forward, very quickly.
The challenges are funding, 1, 2, and 3. We simply don't have the VC talent pool that is willing to put money and wait 7 to 10 years. And I don't blame them, because if I was sitting on the other side of the equation, they want to see companies exiting, making money. Nobody's running NGO here. You still need to make some money. So, Tasneem, I think the funding ecosystem is changing. The RDI, which is a 1 lakh crore pool from the government, if properly implemented, is going to be a game changer. Number 2, the talent pool of not having senior talent who have taken drugs to market is plausibly going to be addressed with the reverse brain drain happening now. So I see things happening. But the major issue is regulation. Our areas are heavily regulated. I think we are half a generation behind the West. We are way behind China. So don't let any nationalist tell you that we are better than China. We are way behind China. So we have some ways to go, but we are going to make that happen. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know whether questions are, we don't have time for questions. So let me just but I think we're happy to. But I think just if I may quickly say, while we are doing good in economy, while we are talking about the GDP, I think the future of any country clearly relies in a long-term way how strong your capabilities to build new global solutions are. It's just going to be science and technology based. There is no developed economy which has done that without this. We cannot be a consumer centric economy for long, to be honest, and do that. And that will require for many of us who actually have that exposures to take those deep science ideas like Bugworks, actually go for it. One person will succeed perfectly good, right? But we need to have those where we can actually, when somebody comes to us and sits in our boardroom and says, what kind of amazing science? And when I talk about Bugworks, their jaws drop. I'm not kidding. And we have to be in the same link. So I think there are ecosystems which are developing more and more. The entrepreneurs are there, efforts like C-Camp are there. I think let's be more ambitious together. I think stories like Bugworks and Anand Anandkumar is an amazing something. And I think we must build collaborations among these ecosystems to take some of those thoughts forward.
And I just want to thank the organizers.
Yeah.
10 years ago, we wouldn't have had a deep science in this. So congratulations to you guys too. Change. These are the changing wheels of time, right? So thank you to the organizers to bring in boring, deep science, deep tech Buddhas on the stage. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.